Aloha, everybody. Calling in from Big Bear. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to Tiki Tuesday Talks. We have Ivy mixed on this one. Let's bring everybody in to say hello here.
Hello.
Hey. Ivy, you're at the bar.
I'm at the bar. Here I am.
How's it going over there?
Well, we're about to open up here in a little bit, in a few hours. So I'm just sitting here and watching the world go by and hoping it doesn't start to hail, which is in the forecast. So never a dull moment when outside's the only place you can sit, you know?
Indeed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Guillaume, where are you calling in from?
Oh, I am in a beautiful Cape Cod.
Oh,
and I'm in my office. Really, that's where I have been since March. And I'm so glad to see all of you guys, and most importantly, to see Ivy in her bar. That's a wonderful thing. I love that site.
Yeah, it's a little normal. A little bit of normal in oddity is being in the bar. It's a little weird.
Man, can't wait to get back and have a daiquiri at that bar. I can tell you that.
Great idea. Great idea. Steva, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Just on the road again, trying to make it work here.
Oh, yeah. We have had rain every day in Birmingham for the last week and a half. We benefit from those two converging hurricanes. You know, we're a little bit north, so it's going to be great. Great. Everything's great. It's great.
Faith, sounds like you need a drink.
Yeah, right?
Hi, calling from Washington, D.C. I'm just at home. That's, yeah.
Good
not much to report from D.C.
Nothing going on in D.C. these days, right?
It's a little political here. Yeah.
We'll skip that. Let's talk about tiki tricks. All right, moving on. Let's give you guys a little heads up of what to expect. So, Ivy, author and owner of Leyenda, as well as co-founder of Speed Rack and all-around badass, stories from the Sugarcane Trail. So she's going to be talking to us about the journey of writing her book and discovering things and all that. A little bit of kind of housekeeping. First of all, chat box and questions. If you guys are on Zavvy, you have the chat box. You can ask us questions there. As well, if you're on Facebook Live, sharing the event is simple. Tip jar, if you're in a spot to do so. Venmo is at Ivy-Mix. It's much appreciated. Presentation will be 30 to 40 minutes. Cocktail session for 10, and then 5 questions with the Tiki fam. A little bit about Ivy. So, co-owner, head bartender of Leyenda, Pan Latin cocktail bar in Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn. A super awesome bar. Love being there. Wish I could be there right now. Backed by her long-term mentor, Julie Reiner, who I'm sure many of you know. She started bartending and living in Guatemala with extensive travels through all of Latin America. Leyenda has won a number of awards, as well as being recognized as one of the best bars in America by Eater, GQ, Thrillist, and others. And she just put out her first book, which we have a code for. which we put in our newsletter. I'm sure Ivy will talk about it. So she's recognized as being one of the best bartenders in the country. In 2015 was named American Bartender of the Year at the Tales of the Cocktail Spirit Award and Mixologist of the Year by Wine Enthusiast. So without further ado, let's get Ivy on and have this chat.
Yay. Howdy again. Well, I'm super excited to be here and kind of talk about my relationship with rum and sugarcane spirits in general, kind of my history of my love and interest in sugarcane spirits, and also kind of where I am now compared to where I was both before I opened up this bar, Leanda, that I'm in, and furthermore, where I ended up after I wrote my book. So I'm really excited to do that. The slides are just kind of bullet points. Look at that beautiful rainbow thank you keynote for the presentation format.
Feels vibey. Feels good.
Yeah, love it. So yeah, I was just going a little bit here. So where did my obsession with rum begin? So I'm not sure if people really know who I am or what my story is, but I originally was born and raised in a tiny town in central Vermont called Tunbridge. Population hovering around the 700, 750 mark. 4 of those 750 people were my family, and everyone was kind of a different version of myself.
Wow.
Yeah, super small. My passion in life, what I thought I was going to do my whole life, was actually horseback riding. I was a competitive horseback rider. I trained horses for most of my life until I went to college. But the only place I'd ever been to, apart from Vermont and a few northeastern states, was actually Jamaica. My parents, before my sister and I were born, I have a twin, before my sister and I were born, my parents discovered this tiny town on the other side of the Blue Mountains from Kingston in the Portland parish, and they started going there a lot. And after my sister and I were born, we were really sick when we were born, very premature, spent a long time in the hospital. And then when we got out, it was in the middle of winter in central Vermont. My mom was essentially like, screw this, we're going to go down to Jamaica. So we did, and I'll talk a little bit about it later on in the chat, but in Jamaica, rum is a huge part of their culture and tradition. And my sister and I were partially raised by a Jamaican woman who literally did all the stuff. Sorry, this is the joys of working in a bar. Who really did all the stuff, like, when we were teething, would put overproof rum on our teeth, or like if we were sick, we would get like a compress with overproof rum on it. So that was my first intro to rum, but didn't really know much about it. The first cocktail I ever made for my mother when I was a kid, like literally a kid, she read it in the book. She's like, I never did that. And I'm like, yeah, you did. Was literally, she called it rum popo, literally just Jamaican rum cut up with some fresh squeezed tiny little Caribbean limes in there. Kind of like a tea punch-ish. Fast forward, I ended up moving to Guatemala when I'm in college. First place I'd ever really traveled by myself. Really got a deep dive into different cultures and places, and just kind of stirred up in me this travel bug and kind of a desire for otherness that was not central Vermont, right? I started bartending in that part of the world, and then kind of spent the next 4 years throughout my college education traveling to different places throughout Central South America. A lot of it had to do with booze, particularly when I went to Mexico. I learned a lot about mezcal. Fast forward, I moved to New York in 2008. I had a spectacularly useless degree in fine art and philosophy, and the economy had and the economy had just collapsed. So, worthless degree plus crashed economy equaled cocktail bar. Seems like I can be creative there and work. And this was about 2009, and I started to try to get into the cocktail scene in New York City. Where's that next slide, Julie Reiner? Is that the one that's up right now or no? Sorry. Okay, so I just want to point out to this slide right here. So yeah, so that's me. The next one's me too, in Lani Kai, which is basically when I first, discovered that I really want to do the bartending thing because I could make money, and I was really interested in these different spirits. I heard that Lani Kai was opening. Before that, I was bartending a few different places around the city, kind of like doing whatever. I got my first cocktail job at Fort Defiance, the now closed Fort Defiance. But
oh man,
I know
that bar, such a great bar.
The best bar. I know St. John's like an alum of Tiki by the Sea. He's the owner. But
indeed, yeah.
He actually told me, he was like, "Hey, Julie Reiner is opening up this bar, this tiki bar." And then she was quick to correct me, that's not what it was. But Lani Kai was in Soho on Broome Street, a huge bar, duplex, upstairs, downstairs, specializing in rum. And, in 2010, beginning of 2010 and 2009, or it was just 2010, there wasn't that many places that were doing huge, massive rum selections. You had your Maya Wells, right, who were doing the tequila and mezcal. I worked there as a cocktail waitress, but very few places were like, here are these tropical drinks, these really amazing rums, beyond your mainstream kind of distilled to the point of vodka rums, right? Like, here are all these rums from all these different places in the world, and we're going to make drinks out of them. And that was the first place I started to realize that rum was bigger than your, spiced rum and Coke. I started to realize the complexity of rums, started to understand the nuances of rums, the differences of rums from different geographical locations, and really started to get into the different flavor profiles of it. I had a lot of knowledge in mezcal before that. And then because of Julie giving me this break at this high profile bar, I really started to deep dive into rum and tiki, actually. It was funny. Last night I did a presentation. I did an Instagram live with Shannon Mustafer, who I know has done one of these before. She wrote Tiki of the also now closed Gladys. We had a conversation yesterday about her book and like the difference between tiki and tropical, right? Julie was very adamant about Lani Kai not being a tiki bar. At this time, Painkiller had just opened in New York, Giuseppe Gonzalez's place. And they were like tiki madness, like, drinking in scorpion bowls and all very ornate. And Julie was, if anyone remembers Painkiller, it was like in a basement. It's kind of
I do.
Good decision.
I do. That's one of the first places I met Brother Cleve DJing in the DJ hall over there. What an experience!
So insane, and again, another now closed bar, but I think it's a really interesting point. The idea of being tropical rather than tiki. And I really got into this idea of tropical drinks, tropical flavors, and rum carrying those flavors. Fast forward, next slide.
Yeah, and just a note on Lani Kai.
Yeah.
I ended up there way before I ever ended up in the spirits business, and it was such a rad bar, really an experience, amazing bartender crew. So I probably had a drink from you there and didn't even know it.
Probably, yeah. I worked the slowest. I worked Tuesday nights where we did like $500 in sales, and then I did Saturday nights where we did like 15,000, and it was like Club Lani Kai. We had like swizzles lined up on the bar for down the line, like so crazy.
Awesome.
But yeah, so then fast forward from that. That's how I met Julie. Went from Lani Kai to Clover Club, where I worked for 4 years. And then I got to open up my bar. This is me, younger and thinner from Stressed Out opening a bar. And this is me now in the same bar. So that was 2015 that we opened up Leyenda. And the point of Leyenda, Julie asked me that we have the same landlord as Clover Club. And Julie called me after I'd been trying to open my own bar for quite some time and was like, where do you want to open up a tequila and mezcal bar? We have a space across the street. And my response was, not really. I wasn't really interested in opening up another tequila, taco, chimichanga, Cinco de Mayo thing. Wasn't really my speed or my vibe. I was more interested in celebrating, maybe using those like tequila that was starting to be featured in rap songs and whatever, and it was becoming to be cool rather than like, ew, I won't touch that. I wanted to use that as a gateway drug, for lack of a better term, into the rest of spirits from this part of the world. Like, why is it that we have, you have your equator, which happens to be kind of like the sugar belt, right? A little bit wider and thicker. And why is it that like this part of the world, like we have like music that comes from this part of the world that's a little bit more upbeat, the spirits that come from this part of the world are a little bit more flavorful. The art is brighter, there's all these different things I want to dive into, and I want to celebrate that at Leyenda. So that was 2015, and we are a Pan-Latin inspired cocktail bar, and we have everything from rum or sugarcane distillates from all over the world. We have everything from, Plantation 3-Star, which I'm going to use a cocktail, you make a cocktail with later, to like rum from Guadalupe, to cachaça, to claren, to agave. Woo woo, cachaça. And yeah, so that was then. And I learned a lot trying to open up the bar about a whole bunch of different spirits. Like I was, even when I worked at Clover Club, which is more of like a gin, whiskey, martini, old fashioned type of bar, when we did cocktail creation, I'm like, over there, because that's where it is, I can see it. It's right there. But when we did cocktail creation there to put in the menu, I was always doing the rum drinks and the cachaça drinks and the mezcal drinks, the tequila drinks. So I was really excited to, do that in this program. Fast forward, next slide. I wrote a book. I'm a kind of a project person. I feel like every 3 to 5 years, I need a new project in my life. So after Leyenda had been open for 2 years, I was like, what's next? Now that I'm not dying from that stress, let's do something else. And I was approached about writing a book. And the first thing that I was asked was, what do you want to write a book about? And I was like, well, I can tell you that I don't want to write a book about what it's like to be a woman in the industry. I'm frequently asked, or what was asked a lot back then, more so than now, thank God, kind of just what's it like being a woman? How's it different being a woman than a man? And this is because of all the work that I did on Speed Rack over the years. So I was like, I would like to write a book on Latin spirits, kind of take after Leyenda and write a book about this bar, and not necessarily this bar, but the spirits that we celebrate in this bar, and how there is such a thing as cultural terroir. The thesis of the book is really, you have terroir, which is, the French term that we usually use for wine. Is the reason why a Chardonnay from France maybe tastes different from a Chardonnay from California. Has to do with climate and weather and this and that, and also culture. But I think that cultural terroir is so important, and it's a reason why when you're sipping a daiquiri, you're not thinking to yourself like, this just reminds me of an Irish pub, right? It kind of transports you. Right? It's a little bit different. So I started writing, and I decided I was going to split the book in, after it's a long and tumultuous process, writing a book, very difficult. After some trials and tribulations, I knew I wanted to focus on history. I knew I wanted to focus in on the cultural significance of these spirits. And then I knew I wanted to obviously make cocktails. And I started writing, and I was like, I'm going to separate this book into 3 sections: agave, sugarcane, and grape. And the reason, let's see, what's the next slide, please? Maybe this one. Next one. Well, maybe not. I'll keep talking. So the reason why I want to split the book, yes, here we go, into these sections was because, you know, in its essence, spirits, booze, everything that we consume is just an agricultural product. And I wanted to take the information about these agricultural products and talk about them that way, and then how we get the spirits from them. A big part of the book is talking about the mestizo cultures that compose Latin America and the Caribbean, really thinking about people who were already here in this so-called New World, the people who came, who, you know, this world was new to them, and the other people who came with the colonizers who were slaves, brought over from Africa, mostly to do sugarcane harvesting and growing and all that. So the slide just said, was like, the process of writing a book and how little I knew before.